all those things that you mentioned, it's funny how I've been involved in those things, and decisions have been made in many of those areas along the way, and yet those issues still rear their heads with some degree of regularity.
Yep, things don't change. People, there are scam artists out there, whether it's the year 2000 or the year 2010. There's people pay utilities, people have to cope with high insurance rates, and they get overcharged by providers and businesses, and so the issues don't change in their core, but how they kind of express themselves in the public.
Well, now, the Attorney General's office is one that is incredibly busy, and yet is more than a bit of a mystery, I think, to most of the citizenry whom you represent and protect in that role, if indeed you are elected to that post. You've got almost 200 attorneys.
Yep.
Actually, there had been 200 attorneys, but a number of them had to go with cuts. And yet, the Attorney General's office is, in fact, a cash cow to the state.
It is a profit center. What it brings in terms of fines and court settlements far exceeds the costs of running the office, and I'm going to keep it that way. To me, it's the best platform in state government from which to fight for issues that matter to people's individuals and the broader public interest. Dick Blumenthal, who's really set the gold standard for the office, has frequently described the office as that of the people's lawyer. For those of you who don't know, there's it covers everything from child support payments, consumer fraud. You deal with utility issues, utility overcharging, with insurance issues, the environmental issues, a lot of civil rights and civil liberties questions. So it reaches into virtually every part of the day-to-day life of Connecticut citizens, and it's a real opportunity to be a champion for issues that matter to people.
Well, now, picking and choosing has got to be difficult because as small a state as Connecticut is, 3+ million people do have a lot of things on their minds and concerns legally on their mind too that they want to be dealt and have some dealing with the Attorney General's office. How is they chosen as to what is going to be utilized and what is not?
Well, that reflects the priorities of the Attorney General. I share Dick Blumenthal's values. I also share his activist outlook on the job. You really are there to be a champion for the people of the state and for that broad public interest. What does change is the times in which you're serving and operating. And for example, when Dick Blumenthal was elected 20 years ago, the issue of internet privacy didn't exist because there
was no internet.
There was no internet functionally. So the context that I'm going to be inheriting, jobs is the #1 issue in Connecticut. Connecticut ranks dead last in job creation around the nation. We're tied with Michigan. Michigan at least has an excuse with a failing auto industry.
Sure.
So whatever I do needs to be evaluated within the context and through a prism of what we can do to bring jobs to Connecticut. Another priority for me is going to be tackling the underground economy that exists in this state. Probably 7 or 8, 10% of our economy is underground, and what that means is that workers don't see their rights respected. Legitimate businesses can't compete with those who cheat, and the state government and federal government too loses tax dollars that we desperately need. So things like misclassification of employees, people pay cash under the table, that's going to be a target for me. And then finally, I've had a long-standing interest in environmental issues. I really sincerely believe that what sells Connecticut as a place to grow a business is the quality of life here, and that we really need to be aggressively stepping up on issues like open space preservation, clean air, clean water, and preserving what's left of our natural and our historical heritage as well, to guarantee that Connecticut is a great place to live for future generations.
That is wonderful, and I think most people would concur with your concern about that. The reality that if indeed you are elected, you're walking into, as you are all too well aware, is a state that has been hammered financially, sees very little optimistic financial light at the end of that terrible deficit-ridden tunnel. And how do we accomplish some of these things with next to no money to do it with?
Well, again, the Attorney General's offices can be a profit center. And most of the decisions and choices, the hard choices that are going to have to be made with respect to the budget are going to be made, and with economic development are going to be made in the governor's office and the legislature. There are things, however, that an attorney general can do. Give an example is to make sure that when you go after a business, that you got your facts right. Don't shoot first and ask questions later. Make sure that if you're going to prosecute the laws, that in fact it's a legitimate case. Because what I'm hearing from the business community and from academia, including professors at UConn, is there's a lack of predictability in Connecticut's economic environment in enforcement of the laws by the various departments in state government. And so businesses, above all, want to know where the line is so that they can stay on one side of the line, and they don't want to see a shifting line. So I'm going to work to create a predictable business environment in the state.
Yeah, that is an area that is sometimes brought up by those anti-attorney general activist sort of types who feel that sometimes they're stepping on businesses' toes too much, and an era that business needs all the help, as you say, at least defining the parameters that they're working in, but also defining, how successful they're going to be.
Well, a lot of those criticisms are overblown, and in the sense that if a business breaks the law, whether it's polluting or not providing services, overcharging for services, or not providing services to which consumers are legally entitled, enforcing that law isn't anti-business, because it allows the businesses who are playing by the rules to compete. They can't compete against somebody who's lowering their cost structure by gaming the system. Where it can be an issue is what I talked about earlier, which is if there's a shifting line as to what is legal and what is illegal, and restoring that, having a level of predictability, I think is very important.
Well, and that's where some people would say, hey, it's picking and choosing those fights that basically define
right. And
the law and what happens with those businesses.
I'd rather go 10 for 10. In other words, make the right call each time than go 15 for 20 or 15 out of 18, because that means that you're victimizing some innocent businesses who should not have the law enforced against them.
Now, is the Attorney General's office staffed up enough to really take care of the needs of the people, given the fact that
I think it is.
And so forth?
One of the quiet things that Dick Blumenthal has done, which is superb, is that because he's such a high-profile Attorney General, he's been able to attract extraordinary talent to those jobs. A lot of the attorneys in that office could be making a heck of a lot more money than they are as public servants, and they work nights and they work weekends, and they do it because of the example that Dick Blumenthal has set. And that's a very, very unheralded, unrecognized piece of his work. He's really done an excellent job in creating a department of excellence.
Well, that is, as you suggest, his stamina on the job is legend already, and that has obviously been inspirational to a lot of his charges along the way.
Yeah, to be a good Attorney General, you've got to be a good lawyer, and Dick Blumenthal obviously is a superb lawyer, but you also have to have a knowledge and a nose and a passion for issues and a commitment to the job. I think until Chris Dodd called Dick Blumenthal this past January and said he wasn't going to run for re-election as U.S. Senator, Dick got up every morning for the preceding 19 years with only one thing in mind, which is to be the best Attorney General he can be, and so that's an example I'm going to follow as well.
Well, he was keeping such a rigorous schedule, hopping around to different places day and night. You're going to get a lot of frequent driver miles in if you're so elected.
Well, it's part of the job.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hold that thought for just a couple of moments. We're glad to have you with us. Appreciate your stopping by on the way. And we are talking with George Jepsen, who is the Democratic candidate for Attorney General here in the state of Connecticut. We do have to take a quick break here. We will be back with more coming up, though, and we're glad to have you sharing it with us here on David Smith and with Meet the Leaders here on Cablevision. We'll be right back.